Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be covering our two catalog shows in full spoilers, those being She-Hulk Attorney at Law and House of the Dragon. That's pretty much what we're going to be our main topics for the foreseeable future. Besides that, we have a few news stories, some trailers to go over, and a few things on the horizon that are coming up. Let's kick things off with our On Beat segment. On Beat is, of course, our news segment, and we're going to start things off with the long-awaited ad plan for Netflix. I can hear your excitement, Will.
Super excited.
I can feel your excitement radiating.
To finally have advertisements. I've missed advertisements so much.
I think it's smart to do this just because their plan price keeps going up, and it's kind of like once you bring a price up, it's hard to bring it back down without looking like you're devaluing your content.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they're ever going to bring it
make
down.
It look like they're devaluing their content.
I don't think they're ever going to bring the price down on the regular
I don't
tier.
think so either.
And because of that, we're looking at like a plan that's starting to get too expensive for some people. So I can see this being kind of a good idea to introduce like an ad tier, almost like all the streaming services have some sort of an ad tier at this point. So it's like the one thing that like Netflix was like the one company that didn't, you know?
Right.
So the one positive here, the price seems a little bit high for an ad tier.
It
but
does.
I mean, Netflix is a pretty high price too for its non-ad tier, so compared to others.
I don't expect this ad tier to be very popular. This is just something they're trotting out to try to appease shareholders.
I think it's a good idea to get it not just for this though, but as they start to reach like more overseas markets and stuff, it's going to be a good idea to have like the technology in place for an ad tier, you know?
Yeah.
Right now, it's going to be set for $7 to $9 a month. Like I said, it's pretty pricey for an ad tier, but I mean, considering that like at our household, we have like the 4K Netflix, and that's I think like $20 a month now or something. So it's already pretty high up there. So it kind of makes sense from that standpoint, like comparative to the regular price. Also, the one thing I do like is that it's supposed to be 4 minutes of ads per hour. That's very low by broadcast standards, especially by broadcast standards. I think it's like 18 minutes to an hour as ads. So 4 minutes of ads per hour is pretty low. And when I watch something like on Hulu, for example, like the Hulu plan I'm on has ads, every ad break seems to be about 1.5 to 2 minutes long, and we'll have 5 ad breaks or something in like a half-hour show, like, you know? So it seems like it's doing better than Hulu as far as like ad content goes. But
right.
This isn't really going to affect me because I'm going to stick with the 4K plan anyways. Do you have any intention of stepping down to an ad plan?
No.
Yeah, I think all of this makes sense, and all of it has absolutely no effect on me.
Yeah, it's no effect on me.
Yeah, but Bloomberg is reporting this. It's still rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but, you know, Bloomberg's a pretty reliable source, so we can go from there. Our next news story, Umbrella Academy has been renewed for its 4th and final season. We were going to talk about it, but I didn't really like the 3rd season that much, and I think you hadn't started
other
it
stuff
yet.
Came up.
Yeah, we had other stuff to talk about, and it was like we had to rearrange some of our schedule to fit in some other stuff, and I think we both came to the decision that like we just didn't really care about covering the 3rd season that much. And I don't think you had gotten onto it yet. I don't know if you've gotten to it yet. I know you're busy with some other shows, but I think it's a good time to kind of end things off. I'm hoping that my biggest complaint with season 3 was that it just was going back to the dysfunctional family shit, which is like, I understand that that's always going to be there to some extent, but it was like as if there was absolutely absolutely no development in the past seasons. Like it was kind of frustrating. It's like, come on, like it's been 3 seasons. Like these characters should be in a different place now, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
I'm hoping that if they're ending it, that the 4th season can kind of step up to resolve some of that.
Right.
Speaking of renewals, Harley Quinn has been renewed for a 4th season. A rare renewal on from Warner.
Well, people were on edge because of, the cancellations. Also, Warner's hard stance against animation now all of a sudden.
I don't like it.
This being like an animation project seemed to like make it like even more in jeopardy, but apparently, yeah, season 4 is going forward.
New showrunner.
So that's good news. I don't know if I'm optimistic about season 5 though.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what the Zaz thinks, I guess.
I think good old Zaz, like, somebody handed him a plate with like, just a bunch of animation projects like on it, and he just became the horse from Ren and Stimpy and just said, no sir, I don't like it.
Yeah. Really.
Next up for renewals, House of the Dragon, Hot D, has gotten an early renewal for its 2nd season with Miguel Sapocjnik stepping down as co-showrunner.
Yeah, which, he's been developing this for 3 years. He wants to do other things, which is fine.
Yeah, this isn't a sign of concern. He's usually showrunners or writers. Miguel Sapocjnik is a director.
And also, yeah, he's been director. He was also involved directing episodes for originals, like the Game of Thrones, So
yeah, as a director, it's weird that he'd even be on as a showrunner at all.
Right.
But I guess he was kind of passionate about guiding this project in the right direction, and he feels like he's done that. So this isn't like a negative to see it. It's not like, oh no, he's leaving, things are going to go. He's not a writer, he's a director. So it was weird for him to be kind of in that role anyways. The real mind behind House of the Dragon, as far as like the story and everything goes, is Ryan Condal, who is now going to be the sole showrunner for the series.
Right.
Hot D, season 2.
I feel like season 2 was like they were already planning to renew it. They just needed the ratings from the premiere to come in to like solidify that.
Yeah.
Because if it underperformed significantly, then it would have been a different story. But
I didn't make a story for this, but it's a good time to bring it up that like we talked about last week, episode 1 did almost 10 million. Episode 2 did 10.2 million, which doesn't seem like a huge step up, but there was a lot of speculation
the fact
that it
was
could be a drop off because it was just curiosity, people watching the first episode. Yeah, and this shows that it actually stepped up. So that's a good thing.
The fact that it stepped up at all is major news, because normally what happens with shows is that you get big numbers for premiere, and then the second episode there's a drop off as the people who were just curious about the show don't stick around.
Which is like doubly true for a spin-off of Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
which had a lot more curiosity attached to it.
Right. It's normal for the second episode of a series to have a drop off. It's not normal for viewership to increase.
Yeah, even by a small number, it's a gradual increase. It shows people that were maybe a little hesitant to watch it, and then watch the first episode. We're like, okay, I'm on board now. So it's a pretty good sign. And then our last piece of cancellation or renewal news comes with a heavy heart. We have to announce that a certain Netflix show is coming to an end.
Oh man, Netflix canceling a show? That never happens.
I'm just choked up. This is really hard to talk about.
Resident Evil was canceled. I'm not surprised,
It's too precious for this world. Too precious for this world.
I'm not surprised. Reviews are mixed, and also the premise, it had some bizarre premise that didn't really, speak to Resident Evil fans. As a Resident Evil fan, all we want is a proper adaptation of the games.
What Resident Evil fans really want
is
that vampire mama from Village, it doing like a jazzercise thing,
Jeez. Yeah, yes, some people want that.
So everybody can jazzercise and work out to, what's her name? Lady something.
Lady Dimitrescu.
Yeah, Lady Dimitrescu jazzercise routine. That's what people really want from Resident Evil.
I just want a series with with Leon and Claire and Chris and Jill and all that. And
I think they should just do a hand-drawn animation.
Nothing of them.
I think they should just do a hand-drawn animation series a la Castlevania,
They should. said, I saw talks on Twitter like that. They've only done like CG, like animated films. I would love like a hand-drawn Castlevania style Resident Evil series. Yeah, that would be much better.
Yeah. Our next news story is that producer Dan Lin, who was involved in Sherlock Holmes, the Guy Ritchie ones, the recent remake of those, or, the theatrical movie version of those, and the Lego movie series from Lord and Miller. He was a producer on all of those. He is in talks to be DC's Kevin Feige. I guess that's just what they call the job title now.
I guess.
Are you a showrunner? Are you a director? I'm a Kevin Feige.
I'm a Kevin Feige. Yeah. For Lord, like, I don't really have an opinion on this because, like, Dan Lin is like an unknown quantity to me. Like,
yeah, even though the projects he worked on, he wasn't like the creative on those projects, so it's hard to tell exactly what his contribution to those projects was, like if you're in the inside of the industry, you would know that, but like we're not. So it's hard to judge what competency he has in that area, like that he would have as a Kevin Feige.
The thing that makes Kevin Feige is like, he's a good producer. One, obviously. Two, like he has a passion for the Marvel like brand, for the characters.
Yeah. And a near like encyclopedic knowledge too.
Yeah. He built the Marvel brand, the MCU, by more faithfully adapting those properties than what Hollywood was doing previously. You can't credit Kevin Feige's like success to like Disney or anything. Kevin Feige, when he started out Marvel Studios, he didn't have access to the heavy hitters because of the various film deals Marvel had made before the foundation of Marvel Studios.
Oh yeah, it's weird to think that all of the kind of characters in the Avengers, basically Thor, Iron Man, these are like B tier at best Marvel characters at the time,
Yeah, exactly.
Spider-Man, X-Men, those were like the big characters,
those are the money makers, especially Spider-Man. Like those were money makers, and it shows because like X-Men was doing very well for Fox, and Spider-Man was doing very well for Sony, and Kevin Feige had no access to that, so he had to launch with Iron Man, and people were like, "Okay, Iron Man, nobody outside of like nerds know this guy," it's like, and he turned it into like one of the biggest blockbusters of that year.
I think a lot of it is he has a good eye for picking the right people, I think, and it's not just like actors, but like directors and writers,
he gets good talents, and also like again, he stuck to the material. He didn't say, man, Iron Man is so freaking lame, let's make him like a cyborg and some shit. Let's make like dark armor and edgy and like let's have it like
leather.
Be like let's have it be like the Matrix. Let's like the Iron Man exists in the Matrix now, and it's like no, he adapted what was in the comics, and he got a guy, Robert Downey Jr., who's a fantastic actor, but an actor Hollywood had abandoned because because of his issues in the past, that Kevin Feige like took a chance on, brought him
and then
back.
Also not just for the actor, but like we said, for the directors too.
Yeah.
John Favreau, that's a weird choice.
It is.
To bring on for like a comic book. Like if you think of John Favreau before the MCU, that's a weird choice to bring on for that kind of directorial role that he served for the first Iron Man. But like it's inspired, it fits,
Yeah, I think that, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, and I think a lot of that, the choices have to do with Kevin Feige's skill as a producer, but also like his knowledge and passion for the material he's adapting. He has to be a cheerleader. So whoever gets this job at DC, they have to be able to do that for DC. They have to have a knowledge of that universe and those characters, but they also have to have like the kind of foresight or that kind of Midas touch where they know exactly the people to bring on these projects as well.
Yeah, because DC, they did have somebody basically in charge of the DCEU for a stretch that did have the passion and did have the encyclopedic knowledge of DC to do it, being Jeff Johns, and that didn't really work out for him.
Although
it shows he didn't have necessarily the producer capabilities.
Yeah. Although I don't know if we should fully blame Jeff Johns, because I feel like there's a lot of oversight from Warner Brothers executives sticking their hands in the pie. I think that
could be another factor to consider too. That Kevin Kevin Feige fought pretty hard against the amount of supervision he had over him, which already wasn't that much, but he fought pretty hard against it and earned it after Age of Ultron and got Perlmutter off his case, and then basically got like a seemingly unreasonable amount of power over the MCU, but that's worked. Like it, that worked for its benefit.
Yeah, that worked. Yeah, and I think that's the other side of the coin here.
You think Zaslav could give that much leash to anyone?
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like that's the other side of the coin. They have to if whoever gets this, then Warner Brothers executives, they have to back off. And can they do that? I don't think so.
So I mentioned Dan Lin is the front runner to take on that job. Another name that's being tossed around a lot apparently is Emma Watts, who was a producer on Avatar and iRobot. In the same case, she's not like a key creative. She's more on the executive side, so it's hard to really tell what she would bring to it
really
from that side.
Emma Watts too well, so I don't have an opinion there.
Two of the other names that have been floated around have been Amy Pascal and Greg Berlanti.
Jesus Christ. Both of those would be disasters.
Amy Pascal is the main producer on the Spider-Man and Sony-verse.
Yeah, she was
Spider-Verse stuff on the Sony side.
Yeah, she was a big producer at Sony. She's terrible. She has terrible instincts. The only reason the current Spider-Man movies are good is because Kevin Feige is heavily involved in those.
Apparently, when she went to Kevin Feige to get advice about Spider-Man before they worked out that deal, and he said, just give it to us and we'll do it. And she threw a sandwich at him or something.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, just let me take the wheel. That works out. Greg Berlanti, the Arrowverse speaks for itself. It started out
both good and bad.
Both good. It started out good, then it quickly went way off the rails. So I don't feel like he's really fit to take over the entire DCEU. Just because he can't keep the Arrowverse on a steady track. So
yeah, pretty much. And then our next story, Matt Shakman, who is a director on WandaVision, is reportedly in talks with Marvel to helm the Fantastic Four movie. This is after I should have put this in the notes. I forgot the guy's name. Who was the John Watts, right?
Yeah, John Watts. Yeah,
John Watts was the original director. He did the Spider-Man movies for the MCU.
What this does, though, is his talks with Marvel has forced him to exit his role as director of the upcoming Star Trek movie. And I think that's the real news story here, because this new Star Trek movie they're trying to make is freaking cursed. Right?
The new Star Trek franchise has been kind of cursed as a whole.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting worse. This movie
especially, because this has had so many delays and false starts. I remember originally the first thing that derailed this was because of a dispute with Chris Hemsworth, who was going to star in the movie because
Kirk's dad, right? You played Kirk's dad?
Yeah, he played Kirk's dad in the first movie. And they were going to bring him back via time travel. That was supposedly the plot of the fourth movie. And then
but since the first Star Trek with, the first of the new Star Trek movies, Chris Hemsworth is a huge star now in comparison to what he was at that time.
That came out before the Avengers.
Yeah.
And then Thor and the Avengers came out, and Chris Hemsworth wanted more money to do that, especially if he's going to be have a bigger role in the Star Trek movie, and they did not want to pay him what he thought he was worth. And so, they had to I'm pretty sure they scrapped that entire plot line after that point, and they probably scrapped the script and probably rewrote a new script, but it took them a long time to even get back to this point where they're ready to make a movie, and now they lost their director. It's yeah.
I mean, this happens, it's his business. But the story here is that he's still, Matt Shakman, who was going to be the director for the Star Trek movie, who pulled out and is now being considered for the Fantastic Four movie. That's not a set deal yet, that he's going to be directing Fantastic Four. But the fact that he pulled out of Star Trek says a lot, you know?
Basically, Marvel told him, to make sure you're available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that works out good. I mean, I think WandaVision tonally is going to be similar to what you'd want in a Fantastic Four movie. Is the family stuff,
WandaVision has been one of the best things Marvel's done on the TV side. Which overall, their TV efforts have been pretty mediocre to me, but WandaVision was fantastic. That and Loki, I think, are the best ones.
Yeah, I mean, I've liked them all to some extent, I think, except What If? What If had one good episode to me. But,
which is funny because I read a snippet where Marvel had the multiverse Multiverse of Madness creative team watched that episode of What If before going into full production. They made them watch it. So
I mean, it's a great episode. It's like a great standalone story. And then that's not what If did with it. I think it's a good fit too. Just like, cause I think, WandaVision was like a family story, Yeah. And I think that's going to carry over well thematically.
Especially if they're like, I remember rumors at Fox when they were going to reboot it. There's rumors that they were going to like do it with like a 1960s sitcom aesthetic or something. And I mean, he would be perfect for that if that was the direction they were going to go.
Has literal experience.
Has literal experience. Yeah.
I think it's a good pick. I hope that ends up working out. And I'm looking forward to finally seeing something about it.
I saw a meme. It's like Zoomers when Fantastic Four comes out and Thing says it's clobbering time and they think it's a Morpheus meme reference.
I think it's almost better if they just don't.
Yeah.
Never say that.
Don't never say that. Never. Yeah.
Like, or if you do it like in a kind of clever way that diverts a little bit. I mean, Hulk smash wasn't even said by the Hulk in any of the MCU movies. It was said by Captain America. He said it kind of in a joking way where he was like giving out orders to everybody and he said Hulk and Hulk looked at him and he said smash.
Yeah.
And so like that became like a funny way of like referencing that line it's kind of a cheesy line, And I think that It's Clobbering Time is also a cheesy line. And so like if they're gonna reference it, they should probably do it in a way that kind of shakes it up a little bit. Our next news story, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Papa Winchester himself, is going to be joining season 4 of The Boys in a mystery role. Yeah. The prophecy is pretty much complete at this point.
The prophecy is complete. I knew this was going to happen. Eric Kripke was not very quiet about his desire to get Jeffrey Dean Morgan on this show.
Well, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was going to be in season 3. Like it was a set thing.
Yeah.
That they were going to do.
COVID
caused a problem with that. Not just in general, but like it's because The Walking Dead and The Boys filmed in different countries. And in order to go into Canada where The Boys films, they have like a 2-week quarantine and it was going to be a small role, like a cameo. And that just would not work with those conditions. The fact that he also had to film The Walking Dead, it just did not work. Like it was just completely undoable.
I'm guessing that his role in season 4 has been upgraded to something more significant than a small cameo role.
I imagine that's the case as well. I think his original role was likely that he was going to be the legend.
Yeah.
Who ended up being played by Paul Reiser. I think that makes sense.
Honestly, I think if that's true, it's for the better. No offense, Jeffrey D. Morgan, but Paul Reiser like really killed that role. So
yeah. But to me, it's like from everything I've, from watching season 3 and from everything I heard about his supposed role that was going to be in season 3, that's the one that seems to make the most sense.
Right. Yeah.
Season 4, I think before you talked about who you think he's going to be playing.
Yeah. Which is Tech Knight, which is kind of like
Iron Man meets Batman kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. An Iron Man / Batman type vigilante where like Tech Knight is sort of a Tony Stark, Bruce Wayne type character. And when you look at Jeffrey Dean Morgan, like physically he fits that image, right?
Well, he also kind of played Bruce Wayne's dad. So.
Oh, that's right. He did play Bruce Wayne's dad. You're right. So it seems like he would be perfect for that role.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that like when they said Jensen Ackles was Soldier Boy, I was like, of course, like I could definitely see him playing an asshole version of Captain America.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It's like, oh, the asshole Tony Stark. Yeah, that makes sense for him.
I wonder if this means we're going to see Soldier Boy back in season 4, just so we can have,
just so we can have
together,
the Winchesters reunion.
Yeah.
Although I just don't know how that would work out plot wise, but yeah, like it's definitely something I would love to see.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one key cast member from Supernatural left that they need to bring onto The Boys.
Yes.
But he's busy.
They need to find a way to sneak him like out of his Walker commitment and into the show.
Yeah, definitely. Our next news story, there has been a new Kickstarter campaign for 2 game series. It's actually a combined Kickstarter for the spiritual successors. Think like the way Bloodstained was to Castlevania.
Or like the Ayuden Chronicles is
to Suikoden, yeah. But this is going to be a dual campaign for the spiritual successors to Wild Arms, and far more importantly, at least to me, Shadow Hearts.
Right. And they both look fantastic. The Shadow Hearts, like Penny Blood.
Yeah, it's Armed Fantasia and Penny Blood are the new names. These
looked really, really cool. With the gothic horror style. Like, I've never played Wild Arms or Shadow Hearts, so I don't have like any emotional attachment to those franchises.
Shadow Hearts is so good. But Shadow Hearts 2 is still like, I have a 3-way tie for my favorite JRPGs of all time, and it's Final Fantasy VI, Xenogears, and Shadow Hearts Covenant. So that's how high that ranks for me. It's like one of my favorite RPGs ever. I'm so looking forward to Penny Blood. Armed Fantasia, I mean, it looks good from the trailer, but I wasn't a huge fan of Wild Arms. This has been announced for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC, and they also added a Nintendo option, which is very similar to what was done with Euden Chronicles. As you mentioned last week on the podcast, we talked about Euden Chronicles, and you mentioned that this was originally announced as like, you know, one of the options for the platform was going to be the Switch successor, the unnamed Switch successor, if it comes about. And if it doesn't, they were going to see if maybe they could possibly get it running on the Switch, but they didn't seem all that confident. Then they ended up, you know, they got a publisher involved, a bigger influx of money, then announced it is coming to the regular Switch, not a Switch successor. Yeah. So this is kind of a similar boat in that they announced a Nintendo option, but haven't yet announced it as...
Yeah, it's the same thing. That made sense because Euden Chronicles was announced as being... It was originally PS4, Xbox One, PS5, Xbox Series X, PC. This is not
your toaster.
Yeah, these two games are not announced to be running on last-gen consoles. These are strictly current-gen systems. And honestly, I don't see like that the same thing happening with this because I just don't see how the Switch isn't going to run games designed for current gen systems. It's just not. It's not up to par for that.
But here's the good side: if you look at around the date at which these games would come out at the earliest, and you consider what both Will and I have predicted, we both been pretty similar in our predictions for when a Switch successor would come out. It seems like there's like a pretty decent span of time in which this could work.
Yeah, these estimate delivery dates as March 2025. I think there's I think there's about a 90% chance or even better that there will be a new Switch hardware by March of 2025.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be very weird, I think, if there isn't. Like, I'd be shocked if there isn't one.
Same. Yeah, I'd be shocked to hell. Yeah. Because the Switch would be like, man, the Switch is already starting to show its age. It'd really be showing its age by March 2025. So
yeah, definitely. It's still hanging in because, like, you know, like you mentioned about cross-platform stuff with PS4 and Xbox One, like still kind of holding out and still getting games and stuff. That's starting to dry up now. It hasn't dried up yet, but it's starting, you know?
Yeah, it's beginning to. So
yeah. And then lastly, for our new segment, we have some trailers to go over. We're going to start off with Weird, the L. Yankovic story. Looks absolutely hilarious. I cannot wait for this. I showed this to my mom, and even she's like, oh, I want to see this. This looks really funny.
I was like, November, man, it's so far away. At least it's free. You watch on the Roku channel.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't have to pay for a subscription to watch it. But yeah, this looks hilarious.
God, I love the scene in the trailer with the origin of My Baloney.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the guy's on the couch and there he's like, I got chills.
That scene is so great because he like looks at the baloney, right? And he just like mouths to himself, My Bologna, like real quiet. And then it switches to he's singing it with the accordion, but he looks like he's like possessed.
Yeah, possessed by divine inspiration.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I don't know how many of these like kind of music biopics you've seen or biopics.
A few. I watched Walk Hard too, so.
Yeah, like there's very much like a style to them that like over dramatizes, you know, the process in which this has happened. I mean, one I could think of is in Bohemian Rhapsody. There's like these scenes of him like, he's like sleeping on the floor and he's reaching up and gently playing the melody for Bohemian Rhapsody on the piano. And it's like as if it's coming from like divine inspiration or something.
Right, yeah.
And it's just really funny the way this kind of parodies that. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I think Daniel Radcliffe is an inspired pick for this. I think there's like almost a meta joke in the fact that Daniel Radcliffe is really short and Weird Al's like 6'4".
Yeah.
So there's almost like a little bit of a meta joke just in that it's like never even expressed. And then, but it's just Daniel Radcliffe has like found this new career as an actor in comedy.
Yeah.
You know, like starting out as a child actor with Harry Potter and then just becoming like a really kind of very qualified comedic actor is been kind of fun to watch.
What I love like about Daniel Radcliffe is like he seems to like seek out these very like offbeat roles.
Mm-hmm.
To the point like he did a movie where he played a dead body for the entire movie.
Yeah.
So like
yeah, definitely. You hear all the people that want him to be Wolverine.
Oh God. Yeah, no.
There's something I like about that, and that's just that I do kind of want them to do a short Wolverine.
Yeah.
You know? It's like Hugh Jackman was a weird departure for the character. He's not the only choice to do that. I mean, there are plenty of short actors that could fit that role too, but I just like the idea. I think it would be cool if they did a short Wolverine, but
right.
It's just kind of funny how much of like a fan audience there is for that, you know, that want that to happen. Our next trailer was My Best Friend's Exorcism. Knew nothing about this going in before I saw the trailer. I'm like, this could be like a really bad, like Disney Channel style movie or something.
Yeah,
but then I watched the trailer.
This could be like super cringe.
Yeah.
No, it looked genuinely funny.
You got a good pedigree on this with, you know, the people from like Happy Death Day and stuff that are kind of some of the more inspired recent horror movies.
Right, yeah.
So this is like a cool, like, way to do this. It looks really funny. Looks really interesting. I think this looks pretty cool. Anything else to say about that one?
I know, it just looks funny. I'll watch it when that comes out. For
and
sure.
Then our last trailer to discuss is something I am very much looking forward to, and this is the best trailer yet for it. Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Man, that looks so good. And I can say as somebody who sunk over 200 hours into the game, like every shot in that, like where they show like a character walking and there's stuff in the background, I'm like, oh, that's this area of Night City, and oh, that's that area, and oh, he's really close to this part. They did a great job. Like you could just already tell Trigger is like a super stylistic anime producer that they could have done. They didn't need to be that accurate, and they are, you know, and it's just so cool. So looking forward to this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Looks fantastic. I like Studio Trigger. I like their animation style. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be a trip when this comes out. Definitely. And that brings us to an end to our On Beat segment. And now we're going to move on to On the Horizon. On the Horizon is where we talk about stuff that's coming up in the next week or so. And we're starting things off on Sunday, September 4th. Rick and Morty returns on Adult Swim. I'm not a huge Rick and Morty fan, but I know this is a huge thing. It's got a huge fan base. I would be remiss not to include it.
Right.
Speaking of animated properties, American Dad returns on Monday, September 5th on TBS. Last Light is coming on Thursday, September 8th to Peacock. This is a mini-series about a global oil shortage. The main thing here, though, is that this is kind of the return to TV for Matthew Fox, who was in a little show that you and I kind of liked a little bit. We only mentioned it a few times here and there, I think. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, maybe we didn't mention it at all. I'm not sure. Have we ever mentioned Lost?
I don't think so. Nobody remembers that show.
But this is his return to TV acting since Lost. He did like a couple movies after Lost and then just kind of disappeared for like a decade. And now he's back with Last Light miniseries coming to Peacock. Then we have Pinocchio, the animated movie that's doing like their kind of quasi live action thing. It's Robert Zemeckis, Tom Hanks, and they're kind of doing that like realistic Uncanny Valley style from like the Polar Express. But it also it's that typical thing that Disney's been doing where they do like something like The Lion King, where they say, oh, this is our live action Lion King, but it's all completely CG.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, Pinocchio looked like Pinocchio. I'm going to be honest. I don't care about these Disney remakes. I think Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio looks better.
Yeah. I mean, Pinocchio's in the public domain. So
yeah,
anybody can do a Pinocchio project. We also know about the game that we mentioned last week.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. The Liza P.
Anybody can do it.
That also looks better.
Disney has their kind of own version of Pinocchio that's specific to them that can't be copied, like the look of the character and stuff. I think I saw somebody else say this and I completely agree. This is a Robert Zemeckis movie starring Tom Hanks as the pandemic's kind of cooling down and more stuff is coming out to theaters more actively. And this is still coming straight to a streamer, straight to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound great, you know?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like a big vote of confidence in this film, does it?
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Next up, we have Wedding Season. This is like a really genre-bending kind of movie. It's about this guy, and he goes to try to break up the wedding of this girl he likes, and she ends up like her spouse. She ends up getting married, and her spouse like dies, and then they end up like on a road trip together, and he's being chased by the police as a suspect in the murder.
What?
But he thinks she did the murder, and it's just kind of like a weird, crazy action genre-bending road trip movie.
Yeah, that sounds weird. Yeah.
It looks pretty fun from the trailer that I saw. It's coming on Thursday, September 8th on Hulu. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty fun to me. Then we have Cobra Kai returning on Friday, September 9th on Netflix. We've talked about Cobra Kai a bunch. We've talked about this season of Cobra Kai a bunch.
This needs no introduction, no further elaboration.
Yeah, that's it. Cobra Kai, Friday, September 9th on Netflix. Then lastly, Splatoon 3, also coming on Friday, September 9th on the Switch. They just recently had the Splatfest demo where they had everybody able to play that. My team lost, so fuck Splatoon.
I was
Team
working
Paper lost, so I don't care.
Wow.
No.
Oh, well, you chose Team Paper. That's your mistake.
Yeah, I knew everybody was choosing, I think it was Team Scissors because they liked that one character, the big boy character, whatever. But
yeah, big man.
Yeah, but I don't vote based on the mascot presenting it.
Big man.
I don't choose based on the mascot. I choose based on the topic, and paper is much more versatile than rock or scissors.
True.
Screw them. Honestly,
well, you know, scissors beat paper, right? You know that. Basic rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, but how did rock beat paper? Like, that's just weird.
I don't know. They cheated. They cheated.
Damn dirty cheats.
Yeah.
My honest opinion about Splatoon 3 is I just don't think enough has changed since Splatoon 2. And the reason, I think it was the same case with Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2. The difference, of course, being that they were on different hardware. So to me, buying Splatoon 2 was less about like, oh, these are the improvements I needed over Splatoon 1. It was more of like, oh, I'm not using my Wii U anymore. If I want to keep playing Splatoon, I need to get the new Splatoon. And with Splatoon 3, it's like, yeah, but the Switch already has Splatoon 2. Like, it just doesn't feel that necessary to me, but...
Yeah, I feel like Splatoon should be once a gen, yeah.
And then just support it throughout, yeah.
Yeah, they should just support it with DLC and Splatfests and stuff throughout the generation.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's kind of my issue with it. I'll probably still end up getting it. It's one of those things that, like, I'll see a bunch of my friends playing it and I'll be like, oh, fine. Oh,
yeah.
3. But it's going to be one of those, like, begrudging buys. I'm sure I'll get enough playtime that'll be worth the money, but I just kind of wish that they maybe held this off for the Switch successor.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that is it for On the Horizon. And all we have left is full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're going to be talking about She-Hulk Attorney at Law Episode 2, Superhuman Law, and House of the Dragon Episode 2, The Rogue Prince. Let's kick things off with She-Hulk. Most importantly, let's talk about the fact that Cousin Larry is Jennifer Walters' father.
Cousin Larry's big return to television. I hadn't seen that guy in anything in ages.
He was in The Leftovers. He was really good in The Leftovers, playing himself. He played, like, literally himself.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me this.
Yeah. It was really good in that. And like, it was initially like a one-off, like joke kind of cameo role. And then it actually became like a bigger part with like a interesting story that actually kind of worked. But it was exciting to see him as Jennifer Walters' father. I loved the family dynamic. I think that's been something in the last 2 Marvel series they've done really well, is the family dynamic. Ms. Marvel, we both talked about our misgivings about that series and plot-wise how it fell apart. But both of us agreed that the family dynamic was really good.
I liked the relationship with her and her father. I did not like the rest of the family dynamic. I felt like the family was portrayed or like presented as like way too cartoonishly obnoxious.
In She-Hulk, you mean, right?
Yeah, in She-Hulk, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. So like that did not land for me.
Yeah, I think it's most of the time was between her and her father, and then her cousin that was kind of like a joke character.
Yeah, like the rest of the family was portrayed as pretty like outlandishly obnoxious, and it was just like,
I kind of enjoyed that though. I mean, this is a comedy series, so I kind
It
of
is,
enjoyed that.
but
I really enjoyed the negotiation. I love the
too
post-credit scene.
for comedy.
I love the
Oh,
post-credit scene this week. They've been nailing those
Oh,
post-credit
yeah.
scenes. Just with her helping with chores around the house. I just think that's hilarious.
I like, they introduced like one of the main plot points this episode was where she's going to be representing Emil Blonsky Abomination.
They also did some cool stuff with his character.
They also did some cool stuff with his character. Yeah, I liked what they did with his character. But the thing is, like, they were like, he's in maximum security. And I was thinking, and I remember thinking during the episode, I was thinking, okay, so then does this take place before Shang-Chi? Or like, how was he in that fight club? And then I liked at the end, like, they had that news report. They addressed that. And I guess they're going to further address that plot point in the next episode because Wong shows up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday, August 31st. The new episode is going to be up in like less than 4 hours. I can't wait. I'm actually really enjoying She-Hulk. I think you're less into it than I am.
Yeah.
But I've been really, really enjoying it. I think it's hilarious. I absolutely adore Tatiana Maslany in this role. I think she's phenomenal in this role. I like her interactions with just about everybody she's interacting with. I love the way they handled Abomination and just the way he's like...
Oh, yeah, that was great. That was
it's
the
hilarious, just the way they're presenting him.
The stuff with Emil Blonsky, in my opinion, was the highlight of this episode.
Yeah, I liked all of it. It's, I have really high hopes in what's going here. There isn't too terribly much else to talk about. One thing I did want to pick your brain about is there's a theory going around that I think would be really cool if they did it. And I think that's where they're heading. I just don't know for sure. And I wanted to gauge your opinion. You probably heard it once I bring it up. You'll be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Which is that we saw it was the spaceship from, was it, Sakaar?
Oh, Sakaar, yeah, because, Bruce is on the spaceship because she's talking to Bruce about Emil Blonsky. And I really liked the meta joke they put in there where Bruce was like, that was so long ago, I was a different person. Like, literally.
I love it. Like, he wrote a really heartfelt haiku.
Yeah,
and he had been writing all these haikus that he wanted to share with. Yeah. I think that's hilarious that, like, all these people he's wronged, he's just leaving them.
I don't know if I heard the theory, but yeah, Bruce is on the spaceship, so he's doing something.
So I don't know too terribly much about, the Hulk, comics and stuff, but I have heard about them when like one of the movies is coming up and they talk about plot points. So when Thor Ragnarok was being made, it was partially like a Planet Hulk movie. And I guess in Planet Hulk, he has a son that he's had with somebody else or something. And that's the rumor going around is that the reason this planet, it is the same planet from, Thor Ragnarok, is reaching out to him is because he might have sired a son in like the 3 years. What was it? 3 years that he was on that planet?
Yeah, that'd be kind of out of left field, but yeah, maybe.
It's interesting. I don't know how they'd address it. They still don't have the movie rights to Hulk. Apparently, those might go back to them soon.
Yeah, I think they will.
So it would be an interesting way to handle that story. To do that, the idea of that this is something that when Bruce was not in the driver's seat for, that this is a consequence that Rage Hulk has dropped Bruce into. I kind of like the idea of that, and I don't know where they would go with it. But I mean, theoretically, this could be like an 8-year-old kid, basically, because you have like the 3 years, and then you have the 5 years from the snap.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on that too much.
That's a theory going around, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Valid that is. I mean, there seems to be a cycle in the fan where like fans pick up on these little tidbits, they connect them back to comic books and stuff, and then they come up with these wild theories, and then it never turns out to be correct.
What's the character that?
Mephisto,
I was going to say.
And WandaVision.
We still don't know. I mean, they could at any time release a bonus episode of WandaVision and find out it was all Mephisto's doing.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. They could bring Wanda back and like they'd be like, "How are you back? We saw you in Doctor Strange," and she'd be like, "Oh, that was Mephisto taking my form."
It's gonna happen. I'm telling you. It's
gonna happen. Gonna happen.
Yeah. All right. But that's it for She-Hulk. We're going to talk about that next week as well. So keep up with that. But that leaves us with our last episode, which is House of the Dragon, episode 2, The Rogue Prince, which started out, I tried to put something on. We started watching that right when we sat down to eat, and I was going to put something else on, but it wasn't available. So I'm like, oh, it can't be too bad. And it opens up on the most graphic scene of the series so far, I guess. Not quite as terrifying as the C-section scene, but I think more graphic.
Are you talking about with his
the crab
finger?
eaters?
Oh, the crab eaters. Yes, that's right.
the crab. What's he called? The crab feeder.
Yeah, the crab feeder. Yeah, which is like really like Silence of the Lambs looking scary dude.
Yeah, I mean that thing started up literally like as I was putting food in my mouth. It's like okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it starts out.
Don't
with
try
this.
to eat when Game of Thrones is starting.
I was trying not to, and the other thing I was going to watch wasn't available yet, so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go into this, and then turned out not to be the right idea. But it was a good episode. One thing that I brought up to you, and I'll say it here, is that I really like one thing this show is doing that's so different from Game of Thrones is that there's no like set obvious evil character in this show.
No.
Everybody's like reasonable. Even when somebody does something kind of rash and stuff, you can kind of see their point or where they're coming from in what they're doing.
The first episode, like, they kind of set up Daemon as an asshole, but like, he's no Joffrey. There's layers to him. He's not like evil for the sake of being evil.
He does provocative things, but then even after it, like there's moments where he'll do something provocative, and not only does he reflect on whether or not it worked, but sometimes you can tell that it looks like as if he's questioning, I shouldn't have done that, like that was, I think I went too far there. And that's something like Joffrey would never do.
One thing I'm loving about the series though is like Daemon's relationship with Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm.
When she shows up to the bridge, because Daemon is confronting Otto at the bridge, and like his whole line is like he stole a dragon's egg because he wants to have it for his child for when his child is born, because the story is, like his girlfriend is pregnant.
And he's going to take her as his wife.
And he's going to take her as his wife, and that's the story. And that's what he's insisting to Otto. But as soon as Rhaenyra shows up and she questions him on that, he just crumbles. He just gives up the lie in an instant.
Yeah. He's also, your girl's going to have a baby. And he's like, eventually.
Yeah, eventually. That just shows like the relationship he has with her. He could lie to Otto all day because he doesn't give a shit, but he can't hold the lie to her.
Yeah, and even with her father, there's a part at the end of the episode, which, I mean, we don't have to keep anything in any order here, but there's a part at the end of the episode where Lord Corlys Velaryon is meeting with somebody, and it's really, they kind of set it up like, ooh, who's he meeting with? It was so obvious. I wish they hadn't played it off as a mystery.
Who's he meeting with? Like, who else is in the show?
Yeah.
It's not like there's like this huge freaking cast of characters that it could be anybody.
Yeah, we knew exactly who it was going to be. I wish they hadn't played it as if it was some sort of mystery,
Right, yeah.
But
he's talking to Crab Feeder, obviously.
Yeah, but in that scene, there was the great part where Corley started like insulting the king, and Daemon's like, whoa, I can insult the king. Yeah. You cannot insult my brother. It clarifies the idea that Daemon does care about, his family, including his brother, who he's having this big struggle with. So it's not just a matter of being power hungry. There is affection for his family in there, which is like, part of how he has depth as a character. Like, he just appearances and theatricality of the character, he comes across very like mustache twirly in like the first episode.
Yes,
and then as you go on, even in the first episode, but especially in episode 2, you realize like, oh no, he's like provocative. He plays things up. He does things for effect, to do that stuff, but he's not like, that's not him. That's kind of like his character of himself,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I really dug that. I also dug even like little small interactions that he had. Daemon, of course, being the most interesting character right now. I dug even small reactions he had, like when he was talking to to the knight, the one that bested him in the tournament, Sir Kristen Cole. And he's like, says his name wrong, like in this really dismissive way, like, whatever or something. And Kristen Cole's all like, no, it's Kristen Cole. Remember, I beat you in the tournament, And this very like kind of arrogant way he says it. And like, instead of being like super offended, it's almost like as if Damon like gained a modicum of respect for him for saying that,
Right.
Like he was like, nice, like you got me. That was good. So I kind of dug that aspect as well. And another part of this whole thing is after that scene where he like lied about his girl being pregnant, the scene that followed where she kind of stormed off the bridge and you're like, oh, why is she leaving in a huff, And then he meets up with her and talks with her. And if this had been Game of Thrones, this would have immediately been a scene where you find out, oh, she's like a witchy character that's whispering in his ear and causing destruction.
Right.
That was like every powerful female character in Game of Thrones,
And she is very much not trying to manipulate him. She sees him.
She's upset that he did this. She's like, you just put me at risk. Like, you just made me a threat, and I don't want to be a threat. I want safety.
She's seeking safety and stability with Damon, and that's all she wants.
Mm-hmm.
She believes that being with Damon is a safe position.
Yeah, it takes her out of the brothel, puts her in a position where she's not like risking her life every day on her job, where she can just be with somebody and she can be in a stable position. And she's finding that what Damon just did, like put her in high risk, in a situation where she's just like really upset about that and expresses that to Damon. And Damon's not like, oh, whatever, I'm going to take the throne and blah, blah, blah. He reflects upon it.
Yeah, he does. And because again, and you saw this in episode 1, he does care about her. There's layers to his character. Let's talk about how stupid Viserys is.
I was going to say, you want to talk about the most awkward date in Westeros history?
God, I just, that was the most uncomfortable I've been, like, watching anything in a long time. Like, even more uncomfortable. It was, like, cringe, but, like,
kind of funny, too. Like, just, like, she's, like, talking, like, in this very, like, childish way about, like, dragons and stuff.
She's, like, 12, and
and he's, like, walking with her, and he's just like, oh, God.
They're having a conversation, but, like, he's very much talking to a 12-year-old and trying to talk to her on her level. And it's like, but knowing the intentions is like, ugh.
It's so creepy, like, but at least you can say to his benefit that he knows it's creepy and he's not into it either.
He's not into it either.
He's very uncomfortable.
Very not into it. I don't envy the position he's in. He's being pressured by his society, by the council, to take a new wife.
A 12-year-old wife, yeah.
To take a new wife, whoever that may be, and to birth a male heir. Like, that's what they want. And Corlys is the one pushing his 12-year-old daughter on him because Corlys wants to have claim to that crown. Like, let's face it.
We should mention this isn't just like a 12-year-old girl. This is like his cousin, I think.
Yeah, it's all kinds of problematic. But Corlys wants the union because that gives him a claim to the crown. That's obvious. But that's about the same reason Otto Hightower's pushing his daughter Alicent on Viserys, though, like, more subtly, not outward. Otto has approached Viserys and said, you should marry my daughter or anything.
Yeah, Corlys came out like, there was no subtlety to it. It was like, this is a political move.
Yeah, Corlys is like, you should definitely. Yeah, exactly. Corlys is like, you should definitely marry my daughter and join our two houses. Our houses have been, like, tight since the beginning, right? So just cement that. And, like, politically and in every aspect, yes, that makes sense. 100%, right?
Except that his daughter's 12.
Yeah, except it involves marrying a 12-year-old, and Viserys can't bring himself to do that, even though, like, it strengthens the bond between House Targaryen and House Valerian, cements Corlys as an ally, and who is a very important ally that the crown needs. Yeah, but he does the opposite. Oh, and there's this great scene, too, where, like, he's finally managing to connect with his daughter, Rhaenyra, over the death of their mother. Like, he's commiserating with her over...
This is the invisible hand of Alicent Hightower that's allowing this.
Yeah, that's allowing this. Yeah, exactly. He's commiserating with her and finding common ground, telling her, he doesn't have any intention of replacing her mother. He's doing this because it's her duty. And she comes to understand with him like, yeah, you have to do what's best for the realm, and I understand that. The thing he neglects to mention is that he then turns around and decides to marry her best friend.
Yeah, and he does it all like, well, my daughter gave me permission without all the information, so everything must be hunky-dory.
Yeah, everything must be great.
Yeah.
And you see her, like, if looks could kill, she storms out of that throne room, like, oof.
Yeah, she's infuriated.
Yeah.
She is not happy.
And Corlys is infuriated, which leads to the back room dealing with Daemon.
That's the interesting thing is that Corlys making the move to, like, give his daughter to the king. We talk about it not being subtle, but even more so than that, it's even less about the political ambition of making a tie-in to the king, and it's more about, like, he has an immediate problem that he wants to take care of, and this is the best solution he can think of to give himself enough influence to finally take care of this problem, which is the crab feeder.
Yes.
This guy is fucking up his life.
Yeah, this guy is messing with his shipping and stuff, and he's begging the king to do something about it the entire episode, but the king, he doesn't want to risk open war.
Yeah, I mean, when he talks to Daemon, when Corlys talks to Daemon, it isn't, oh, the king spurned me by turning down my daughter. It's like, the king isn't taking care of this problem with the crab feeder,
Yeah.
That's what he's bringing up. Like, he's not saying, let's overthrow the king. He's like, I'm going straight to you to get you to use your men to help me with this specific problem.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I like about this series is that right now, by the end of episode 2, Corlys would be probably the most oily character on the show as far as like what he's doing, And,
I think the most oily character on the show is Otto. Like,
yeah,
to be honest.
But he hasn't he's still doing it subtly,
He's being very subtle. Yeah, like you said, he hasn't openly pushed Alicent on the king. What he's done is he's had Alicent spend a lot of time with the king in private and like be there to console him and
with a clear implication.
With a clear implication. But one of the reasons he picks Alicent to be his wife is because he's been spending time with her and he's finding like what he perceives to be like a connection with her over these things, and he doesn't see the intent behind it. He perceives her to be like spending time with him, like free of like any political ambition, even though that's really what it is.
Yeah, that shows King Viserys' naivete.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That doesn't pick up on this. And this is something that was kind of made clear. It's kind of weird because what we're seeing is that when the show starts, seemingly Westeros and King's Landing and everything, they seem to be in kind of prosperous conditions. We're not really seeing ground level stuff. We're kind of only seeing it from the position of the royals. So that's right. That could be deceiving,
King, Jaehaerys has reigned over a long, peace. He Viserys at the start of this, he inherits a piece from Jaehaerys. And I think a lot of his hesitancy to do anything to deal with the crab feeders and stuff is because he doesn't want to rock the boat and be the one who started war in Westeros when there's been so much peace.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is he is a bad king.
Yeah.
But you almost feel this would be the king that you'd want because if you don't consider those problems, then you think this is the king you want. He seems very reasonable. He's kinder than any of the kings we've really seen in relation to Westeros and Game of Thrones by miles, He's not really doing crazy, reckless things that are causing problems. His problem is that he's not recognizing problems that are starting to sprout.
Exactly.
It's not that he's doing something bad. It's that he's not doing what it needs to be done. He's feckless.
Yeah, he's feckless. Yeah, he's too afraid to make any risky decisions. He's too afraid to do that, and he's too naive to see the problems that his inaction is creating.
That's why I really like what they're doing with this show as a follow-up to Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is very much everybody's upfront, oily, dark, murderous, hostile to each other. And then our entryway into that in Game of Thrones was the Starks, and they were righteous and they were just destroyed.
Yeah.
Because it's we're going to come in and be honorable. And it's you're fucked. And that's what happened here. And then with this show, we're coming in from a place that kind of seems like an environment in which the Starks would have thrived. People are more honorable. Even when characters are manipulating, they're doing it in kind of subtle ways. They're not being as heavy-handed about it. They're not doing murder plots, you know? So everything kind of seems... Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I mean, is that it feels very much so that we're going to get into a very, very bitter place. Because it's going to be about a civil war, and civil wars are extremely bitter. So we're heading in that direction. I just like that we're not starting there.
Right.
Like, it makes it more interesting that, like, we're not starting at that point. Like, we're not coming into a place of constant distrust. Like, we're coming into something that seems like a rather prosperous, happy environment. And just with the knowledge that something's going to go very wrong. And it's just going to continue to escalate and get wrong. And I like that the current thing that's kind of pushing things in that direction is an external source that is kind of like, hasn't even been presented to us as a character yet, which is the crab.
So yeah, exactly. That's the conflict right now.
He's less of a character and more of just a force at this point.
But it's significant now because the king's decision to marry Alicent, that's the second domino.
Yeah.
The first domino was when he named Rhaenyra his heir. This is the second major domino.
I mean, we know that when the dominoes really fall, we know he's gonna die, because this is about succession.
Yeah, exactly. The dominoes don't really start falling like out of control until like after he dies. Then it gets really crazy. But he's doing a good job of like setting things up before he goes away, right? Yeah.
A good job of saying a good job at inadvertently creating drama that he doesn't know or want to do, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
But that's pretty much it, right? For House of the Dragon episode 2?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
So we're going to continue to talk about this show. I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, I really like, there is a tonal difference in the show. Like, it very much feels like Game of Thrones, but at the same time, it's just that darkness just isn't there. That backstabbery just isn't there, but you can see it on the horizon, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, the tone will shift once things really get going, once we get into, like, the Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, we got a 10-year time skip coming this season.
Yeah, we do.
So, you know, things are going to change in the course of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the tone changes over the course of this season and where it ends up taking us and where we lead off into what we're going to be getting with season 2 and on. But right now, I really like that it has this very clearly distinct and different tone in that sense than Game of Thrones had, while still feeling like it's part of that world.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that is it for House of the Dragon. Like She-Hulk, we're going to be talking about this week to week for the foreseeable future until both of those series end, or until both of those seasons end, I should say. But next week, that's what we're going to be talking about, along with whatever news stories happen to pop up. But until then, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. That's the best way to reach out to us, to leave a comment, good, bad, or indifferent, about anything we've talked about, anything you want to bring up that you want us to discuss on the next episode. Just that's the best way to reach us. But you can also check out any of the container stories for our podcast. Go to our YouTube page, our SoundCloud page, anything like that, our Facebook page. But as I said, the best way to directly reach us is through our Twitter accounts, at Tyson Gifford, at Voxel Hero. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotaliscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.